Good almost afternoon. I think it's 1 minute before. Hi, everybody. Welcome to part 2. How many came last week? All right. Thank you so much. Did you learn a lot? Isn't that wonderful? Some things you think you know, and then there's other things it's like, oh my God, I never even thought of that, or I had no idea that that even existed. So I'm very glad you came. Once again, my name is Lynn Drinkwater, and I'm the Moore County Senior Enrichment Center's Program Coordinator. Just in case there is anybody new here, the restrooms are out the doors you came into this room, and then to the left. And everybody visit the vendors today. Well, you know, the fabulous lunch is from all of the table vendors. We charge them a table fee for these events, and that's the money that we're able to provide you guys with food and refreshments. And then on their own, if they're able to bring a door prize, that's how we get the door prizes at the end of the day too. So a nice round of applause for all of our vendors and sponsors. Okay, so I'm not going to talk today other than welcome you here. Isn't that amazing? I am going to hand it over to Kimberly Wessel, and she works with St. Joseph of the Pines as the sales and marketing director, and she's going to talk about the benefits of living at a life care plan community. So without further ado, here's Kimberly. I'm going to give you the microphone. Thank you. And then you're just going to... Yep, and then there's a little down here is the little, oh no, this thing right here is a little laser.
Oh, okay. All right. We're going to see how this goes, okay? It's good to be with you all today. Thank you so much for your time and your thoughtful consideration. To make this a little bit easier, we did put together this presentation in a green folder. So if for some reason you didn't get one at our booth today, we still have some. You're welcome to pick those up on the way out. It's a lot of information today that I just wanted to break down in bite-sized pieces and just tell you, and hopefully the main thing that you'll walk away with is that when you are exploring plans for your future, we hope that these explorations and that these visits and that these people that you're meeting with, that you can be joyful about these and that you can be excited. You live in a county that has so many options for seniors, and there's really not a right or wrong choice. There is no one size fits all for someone's future. It is very specific and very personalized based on you and your needs. And so the most important thing is that you have a plan, and whatever that plan looks like, it should just be the right thing for you. So today we are going to talk about life plan communities, what they are, what they do and provide, and hopefully you'll get some next steps on if you decide to explore what life plan communities are, some of the key things to look out for and to listen for. And so what are life plan communities and what do they offer? Life communities offer a variety of residences and amenities. And so they have all different kinds of residential units and all different kinds of amenities in that community for the folks that live there. They also offer a comprehensive range of services and care. So life plan communities generally have an independent living portion of their community where most people come to begin with. And then in that part of the community, folks live much like they do right now at home. It's just that you get to not have to do all the things that become not fun. You don't have to do the cooking. You don't have to do the cleaning. You don't have to do the lawn work and the maintenance on the home. Those things are taken care of. There's also a good amount of programming that's provided, and that's everything from spiritual programming to educational to healthcare to fitness. And so generally in independent living communities, there's a broad range of things for folks to be involved in. Then the next section of a life plan community is when someone may start needing care. So generally, life plan communities have assisted living, and that's exactly what the name implies. It is assistance with those tasks of daily living that have become too much. So things like managing your medications, or I might be having a harder time getting from point A to point B in my home. My mobility may not be as good. Maybe I need some help in the mornings getting up and getting ready. So they offer a broad range of services to assist someone and lighten their load in just those daily tasks that will help keep them healthy and stable. And then generally, the last component of a life plan community are the skilled nursing components. And that was traditionally called nursing homes. And so sometimes we have a preconceived notion of what we think a nursing home might be, but we're going to hopefully dispel that. And I encourage you to not think about a nursing home as the nursing homes from long ago. These nursing homes are beautiful. They provide wonderful care, wonderful amenities. And the difference between them and the assisted living is that they have more nurses in those communities who can care for people who have a higher level of medical need than in an assisted living environment. Why would I consider moving to a life plan community? These are the questions you should really ask yourself, talk with your spouse about, talk with your family about, because as we age, our priorities do change. And so the best home for the next stage of our life should be one that provides you more freedom, convenience, better care, and less worry. Remaining at home does have some disadvantages. It certainly has advantages, but it has some disadvantages. Sometimes it can result in isolation. The COVID-19 pandemic taught us that. We got a master class in what it meant to be isolated during that timeline and what that isolation can do to people. Life plan communities offer the opportunities to build new relationships. When you are in community, by default, you are around people, and it takes very little effort to forge those new relationships and to be engaged. Care at home can be costly and difficult. It can also be economical and stabilizing as well. But again, as someone's needs change, there is a financial component that has to be weighed. Does it make more sense to do this at home, or can I get more care in a community where that cost is included? And lastly, a proactive decision allows you to make important decisions for yourself. How many of us like to be told to do something? No, ma'am. So when you are doing these explorations and you are doing your research, then you are being the most independent that you can ever be. You are deciding what your future is going to look like. And that's not only a gift to you, that's a gift to your family. So what should you consider at life plan communities? What are the things that you should think about? You should think about the lifestyle. You should see if it's going to give you peace of mind being there. Life plan communities provide a lifetime of protection, because when you live in a life plan community, you already know, where would I go if I needed more help? This is my assisted living, I would go there. This is my skilled nursing, I would go there. It's just like pre-planning for those higher levels of care. And it also gives you a predictable cost, because you know in advance what the cost of that care is going to be when you move into a life plan community. Then questions to ask yourself. Where do I want to live? Do I want to stay in this area that you're familiar with? Or is moving your family important to me? You know, these are big considerations. Many of you may have family in the area, but some of you may have family that's far removed, not in the county or not even in the state. And so when we start thinking about our future and these decisions, weighing how important it is to be in close proximity to a family member generally is the top of the list. The next thing is, what is important to me for a new community to have? So you think about your home, the things that you love in that, and the things that are important to you, and the things that you're currently doing and participating in the outside community right now. These should be things that you're thinking about when you're exploring life plan communities. Is, do they have these things that are very important to me? You know, sometimes having a wood shop is a deal breaker. You know, sometimes having a sing-along group or a Bible study or a chapel, you know, these are deal breakers for people. So it's important for you to really know in your mind what the most important factors are. And then when you're considering a life plan community that has all different sizes and styles of residential units, a lot of times it's a downside for people from their current home that they're living in. So we always encourage folks to really think about how much space are you really living in. Sometimes we have the luxury of being able to spread our stuff out, you know, in a bigger house, and it takes up all the space that we need because we have the luxury of that. But in terms of the adequate amount of living space that you would need, that is something that you should think about in advance of visiting life plan communities. And do you want to take someone with you to go on these tours if you're not married and don't have a spouse to go along and be the second set of eyes? Do you want to take a friend, a neighbor? Oh, okay. All right. Hi. Okay. So it's always good to have a second set of eyes and ears. You know, we do that oftentimes for medical appointments because, you know, they throw so much information at us. And if you're like me, I leave the doctor's appointment and there were 5 questions that I wanted to ask. And now I'm already in the parking lot and it's hard to get those answers at that point. So, you know, having another person come along with you and really help you discern and break down that information is always a good idea. And do you want to get your financial advisor involved in this? You know, a lot of you have an accountant, a financial advisor, or a durable power of attorney that you really lean on, you know, to help you and advise you with these conversations. Those folks should always be welcome when you're touring life plan communities. And it's important to do your research. So the Google or whatever form that you use to research is a rabbit hole sometimes, right? But it can be very good and very constructive because there is a lot of information about life plan communities. And so it's good for you to do your research, because every community is slightly different. There are lots of similarities with life plan communities, but of course every community has things that are unique and special to them. So it's important to know what those are. They all have different pricing plans. Again, they could be similar, but they could have some differentiators. So it's important to know about that. It's important to know about the amenities, the dining, the services, the activities. These are all pieces of information that as you're exploring, you should find out. What type of residences? So as you've already thought about, what size of a space could I actually live in? As you're doing your research, it's going to be important to know, does this community have and offer what I think would work well for me? We mentioned the activities. And please don't rely on pre-existing notions. You would never allow someone to make your own medical decisions for you that wasn't informed in the process. I encourage you to not say no to something before it is you know what it is that you're saying no to. Whether it ends up being the right thing for you or not, it doesn't matter. But at least you can say, I checked that out. I looked into it, and that doesn't meet my needs. So we encourage you to don't decide in advance of getting information and exploring and touring that it's not the right thing for you. And then have your plan in place. You know, when we are in a crisis, if something happens that's unexpected or something happens even that was expected, and it is upsetting or it can be detrimental, none of us make decisions as well and as good as we would have if we had already had a plan in place. And so we really encourage you to have that plan in place to reduce the anxiety and the stress on yourselves. And these are things also that are important to find out. What services and amenities are included? How does the pricing structure work? Not only what does it cost, but how is it that I pay for those things? That includes monthly fees. Most communities have monthly fees. Is there a resident handbook? You know, it's kind of like living in any new neighborhood that you might move to. If they have a small or large homeowners association, there are do's and don'ts and things that they just want people to be informed about. Generally, life plan communities have a handbook, and it's kind of just like a guideline. It's not a don't do this, but this is how you do all these things, and these are our protocols, and this is who to call if you need something. And also, can I tour higher levels of care? Oftentimes, when people are visiting a life plan community, they're focused on independent living because that's where they're going to live next. But again, people move to a life plan community so that they will have care at assisted living or skilled nursing if they need it. They may or may not. So why wouldn't you look at that too? You want to be able to look at the whole of the community so that you can see what the environments are like, how the people are interacting, and get the feel for those communities when you are touring. Where to start? As I said, you are so fortunate. Moore County has wonderful, wonderful options for you. A few of the local area communities are my community, St. Joseph of the Pines, Phoenix Village, and Quail Haven, and that's just to start. We also have great resources that the North Carolina Department of Insurance puts on their website. They have a comprehensive list of life plan communities with as much information about these communities that you would ever want to know. Because again, you may be exploring locally, or you may decide you want to explore right outside of the area if you have family around. So the North Carolina Department of Insurance is an exceptional resource if that is the case for you. And so let's just say that you leave today and we've given you these tidbits and we've given you a few insights about life plan communities, and maybe it's piqued your interest. And then maybe you want to start thinking about that and planning for that. But then as you go through, you think, you know, this just isn't right for me. So then what? You plan for what happens when you get sick. You won't be in a community where you're transitioning automatically to the next phase of care. So those are things that you want to think about. What will happen if I get sick? And have a plan in place for that. And who is it that will care for you? And you want to have that plan in place so that if you get sick, you already know, your family already knows, your power of attorney already knows who is going to care for you. One thing to think about is do you have long-term care insurance, and is it enough insurance? You have to think in advance about how you're going to pay for the care that you could potentially need down the road. And then really importantly, please discuss your plans with a loved one. It's not enough just to have a plan. You really should have these very thoughtful conversations. I am the daughter of senior parents, and you know, when my parents say, we need to talk to you, sometimes I'm like, oh Lord, is somebody sick? You know, has something happened? You know, what's going on? But again, these are normal conversations that we should be having. Again, they should not be fearful. They should empower us. Not only you, but also your loved ones should empower them to know that no matter what happens, that you've got this, that you have a plan for this. And so what would the next steps be? Choose life plan communities that you would think would best fit your needs, or put your healthcare plan in place. So please, please, please go out and visit, go out and tour, and then figure out if that is the best thing for you. And then enjoy beginning a new chapter in your life with confidence, knowing that you've planned ahead. You know, fear is a terrible, terrible thing, right? And it often keeps us from doing things and making good decisions. But if you're already here today, so that tells us that you want to make these plans, that you want to think about these things and have your ducks in a row. And so that should then give you the peace of mind to move forward and enjoy your life. And that is all that I have to share today. So hopefully this will give you a little guideline so that as you are out there exploring all the possibilities, you'll have a starting point. So thank you again for your kind attention. And I don't know if, Lynn, do you want me, I was right on my time, so I don't know if we have time for questions, but you may not have any. Okay, does anyone have a general question for the group? Okay, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. The question was, are pets allowed at St. Joseph of the Pines? And so specific to our community in independent living, we do have pet-friendly options. I believe most life plan communities have pet-friendly options for their independent living. So that would be a great thing on your list when you're going to visit folks. Yes, ma'am. That's a great question. So the question is, when you transition into skilled nursing, how much of that does Medicare cover? I can only speak to our specific community. At St. Joseph of the Pines, our communities are private pay. The portion that Medicare covers in skilled nursing are short-term stays for rehabilitation. So if someone has had a surgery or an illness and has been in the hospital, but they need some extra help and therapy to get built back up to go home, those are the types of stays that Medicare traditionally pays for. And again, that's based on your insurance and your wellness and how much progress you're making. But other communities might be different. I would defer to them specifically to speak to that. Okay? Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. So if the question was, is there anywhere that you can go to see examples of the different levels of pricing of care? The North Carolina Department of Insurance posts what they call annual disclosure statements, and that is by law a comprehensive report that every life plan community is required to submit. It's a year in review, right? So it's last year's report, but it does for every life plan community list pricing. If you wanted specific pricing for a community that's active today, I would encourage you to reach out to those communities directly, and it may be on those individual websites. Yes, ma'am. So thank you so much. You all have been a great audience, and I'm glad to be here with you today. So thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly. Okay, so next up we have Deborah Ogburn. We were just talking a few minutes ago. She is like one constant. I moved out here almost 20 years ago, and Deborah has already been running Magnolia Gardens at that point. I don't know how many years she's been there, but she is like one constant in this community, and I just love it. She treats all of her residents like a family. It's incredible. There's lots of choices for everybody to have in Moore County, but Deb is wonderful. So come on up, Deb. We're going to turn the lights on for you guys, and we're going to give you these handouts, okay?
There you go. Thank you. Good afternoon. I hope y'all enjoyed y'all's lunch. It looked very delicious. I hope you all enjoyed your lunch. It looked very delightful and delicious, especially that brie cheese. So my name is Debbie Ogburn. I've been in long-term care for probably 25 years, maybe a little bit longer. Started out as a social worker with hospice and Scotland Home Care in Scotland County many moons ago. Moved on to CAP DA, CAP C, CAP long-term care before entering assisted living. So probably been licensed administrator for probably 21, 22 years. I am now the president and CEO of Magnolia Gardens. We are located on Burning Hill Road, excuse me, a little bit back. And today my topic of discussion is to talk about assisted living versus memory care. As we age, we know memory care is one of the most difficult care levels to a loved one to deal with, as well as a resident to deal with. Assisted living in the state of North Carolina, as you can see, the comparison on the sheet with the side-by-side comparison to help you gather if your loved one will need assisted living or memory care. Of course, everybody's a little bit different in their needs. That's why a special assessment will have to be completed on any member to an assisted living. Assisted living residents are residents that are able to verbalize or communicate non-verbally their needs and wishes. They need assistance with bathing, dressing, toiletry, medication managing, and of course, meal prep. Transportation to and from doctor's appointments. Need assisted medication, just making sure you're actually not receiving the same kind of medication or having counter reactions of medications. I would say like a medical review. Every resident that lives in assisted living as well as a skilled nursing home has somebody that reviews their medicine on a quarterly basis. That's very important. That is on both sides, assisted living, skilled nursing, as well as memory care. In an assisted living, residents are able to drive their own vehicle if they choose. They are able to leave and come as they wish. They just have a process. Assisted living is the next step after independent. You come in, you rent your apartment or your room, and you're able to participate when you want and when you don't want. We do have scheduled baths, of course, because of the amount of people you have. Assisted living also allows pets. Most assisted livings allow pets, as long as the loved one is able to take care of the pet or have someone that is able to assist. We do light housekeeping. The most important thing we do is we have fun. In assisted living, the activity department is one of the best jobs to have, activity director. They have fun all day. Yesterday, our group went to the Aloha Zoo up in Sound. They had a picnic. Today, they're shopping. Next Friday, they're going fishing. They just have a ball. So assisted living residents are no different than anybody else. They're able to function. They just need assistance for daily living. Do I have any questions about assisted living? All right, moving right along. Special care units is what we call memory care. Memory care, special care units are for folks that are no longer able to verbalize their needs and wants or desires effectively. They're no longer able to tell you if they're in pain. They're no longer able to tell you if they need to use the restroom. Memory care residents are exit-seeking residents that need to be confined to a special place. At Magnolia Gardens and all the other facilities in Moore County that offer memory care units have a fenced-in area so that you can walk around freely. We have gardens, we have flowers, we have patios, rocking chairs. Memory care residents love to walk outside. They like to engage. They may not remember who you are or who I am. They remember voices. They remember love. They remember compassion. They just want to be happy. And they love for someone to come in and sing to them, hold their hand. The big difference between the memory care and assisted living is just the fact the memory is no longer there. I hope everyone's in here, show of hands. Anybody ever visited a memory care unit? Okay. Some memory care units appear at certain times and certain points during your visit. Residents could be sitting around sleeping. They could be sitting there watching TV. There's not anything wrong or right about entering an assisted living or a skilled nursing home memory care and seeing residents sleep. This is their homes. But if my parents are deceased, I know Sunday after church we'd come home, we'd eat our lunch. My dad slept for hours in the recliner. I think everybody does. So who are we to wake them up? As we know, folks with Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, or any other cognition issues, they like to rest. You wake me up or you wake them up, you may agitate them. It's very important to let them represent themselves and be themselves because this is their home. Number one, it's their home. No one's to say if I have to wear tennis shoes or bedroom shoes. Let me be myself and welcome me at my level. Don't try to change me when you visit. Often family members struggle, which is very human. We struggle because we no longer recognize the person sitting in front of us. These are our parents that no longer know that we're their children or their spouse. They're still human. They remember the love and the compassion. They want you to talk with them. Don't question them. If you walk into a memory care unit and you say, "Hey, Bill, I haven't seen you in years," and Bill looks at you and starts talking to you as his teacher, his pastor, his best friend, his dad, just smile and continue to talk. Don't engage in trying to bring someone back to your level or the level that you want them on. Meet them the day that they're having that day. And every day in a memory care unit is different. Some days your friend may recognize you. Sometimes your spouse may recognize you. That's a great day, and that's a great day to remember and cherish. But please, memory care, special care units are for folks that are unsafe to be at home by themselves. In a regular assisted living, they need 24-hour supervision in a confined space. Often people say, "My mom has dementia. She's in immediately level of care," meaning she's confused. I'm confused at times. I'm at an age I enter a room. Sometimes I forget why I go in. That does not make me a flight risk. That does not say that I'm a wanderer. That means I'm immediately confused at times. So I would qualify for assisted living. When I start forgetting more and more, and I get lost going to my room after I lived in a home for 3 or 4 months, I'm starting to decline. We may look at Wonder Guards. Has anyone ever experienced or seen a Wonder Guard? They're little bracelets, either in the arms or the ankles. In some communities, such as nursing homes, when the resident approaches the door locks. In assisted living, they normally a bell will ring to just notify someone that someone's walking towards the door. They are not a resident that's at a risk for elopement at that moment. We're just watching them because we're not sure. So if you ever go in a home and somebody goes to a door and a beep goes off, don't know someone's coming. As that person continues to decline, and again loses their way, starts going in your room that night, that's when the assessment needs to be redone, that a resident tends to need special care unit, memory care unit, versus an assisted living. It's a little room in here to me. And I know I talk fast sometimes. Does anyone have any questions concerning assisted living or memory care? I have provided a very detailed list of a difference. Now, a lot of people say, well, I pay more for my mom's care than what's on the sheet. This is an average price in the state of North Carolina. One must realize that sometimes there's assisted living, everyone has a room and board, and then there's different levels. So the levels could be a little bit more pricier. Yes, ma'am? Great question, thank you. Her question was, if you live in an assisted living, can you go home with your family? Can you go out to lunch? No matter if you live in an assisted living or a memory care unit, you're allowed to go out. I have a lady next week. I'm trying to convince her to pack me in her suitcase. Not having any luck yet. She's going to Bald Head Island for a week with her family. Wonderful. Many residents go out every day. It's good for the body and the soul. Everybody wants to go out in sunshine. Yes, so you can go out. There's not a limit to days. Nursing homes, there's like so many days you can miss a year. Assisted living, there's not any certain days. Any more questions? Thank you guys for letting me speak. Oh, go ahead, sir. Okay. So that's also a great question. So often when people live in assisted living or nursing homes, our bodies start to fail. And hospice, and we have a couple of hospice agencies here that may speak on this. I'm not sure if that's their topic today. When someone in my assisted living starts to fail, they lose weight, starting to fall, they're starting to not eat, starting to have more confusion. We often get a hospice referral. We tend to call upon the doctor to say, can we get a hospice referral on said person? And then in Moore County, I think we have 6 or 7 different hospices that's available to provide services. And we give everybody a choice. Every hospice is wonderful. They all do the same benefit, hospice Medicare benefit. Just remember, when you go on hospice, ask for what you need, not what they tell you that they offer. If you go on hospice and you say, I need 3 days a week, somebody to come help me bathe my wife, they'll work with you, so. Does that answer? Good answer, okay. Any other questions? Well, thank you guys for today. Hope y'all enjoy.
Thank you. And just to let you guys know, last year we had a program called The Game of Life's Journey. And it was a big program that I created back when I first started here. And it was one of those where you get a little passport and then you go on tours of all of the places in the area. Because sometimes you've never been there or you've been there to visit somebody, and that's a different state of mind. So what I would recommend is to call people, call the places. A lot of times they'll offer you lunch and then give you a tour. And if you go with a couple of friends, then it's not so scary. And I would totally suggest you do that because we're very lucky in Moore County to have so many choices. So it doesn't cost anything, and at least you can go and visit, and then they stick in your mind, just like when you're looking for houses, you make yourself a little list, this one had this one had that, and this way, when it's time, you at least have the idea already formulated instead of waiting until something happens and then you're trying to do everything at the same time. So anyway, I am going to introduce our next speaker, and her name is Jenna Ratliff, and she works as the admissions and sales director or marketing director of, it's Liberty is the owner's name, but everybody knows it as Pinehurst Healthcare and Rehab. So here is Jenna.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I've been in long-term care in Moore County now for 20 years, so over half my life. We currently in Moore County have 7, and we will have 8 skilled facilities by the end of the year, averaging out to 730 skilled beds. Now, the population of Moore County is 111,000, with the average range of 22 to 27,000 over the age of 65. Back to that, we have 730 skilled beds in Moore County. To start with rehab, we offer short and long-term care. Rehab is like they said, broken hip, a little setback at the hospital, need to get stronger, back on your feet. We offer that, and insurance will pay for that. Coming from the hospital, they'll help coordinate all those things for you, make it a seamless process. Long-term care is a bigger elephant. As I mentioned, we are private pay as well as Medicaid. Medicaid will cover a lot of your services should you need it, and if you are approved and qualified for it. I think somebody else spoke on that before with Medicaid services. Private pay averaging out right now, semi-private is $9,500 a month. Private pay, $11,000, and that is an average. My building, we fall right in between that. So whether you're thinking about heading north to go closer to home if you came here, or whether you want to go south further, it's about apples to apples in cost right now. And like Lynn said, I encourage visit. You just never know when you're going to have that stay. So whether you're going to have that fall or that setback with your CHF or whatever, please visit these facilities ahead of time. Like I always tell people when they come, skilled nursing is scary. If you've never experienced it, or if you have, it is terrifying. So ask questions, visit. Like Lynn said, you might have just gone to a facility to see somebody, but that's not the whole experience. You need to ask questions. So, any questions? Sure. Semi-private versus private. Yep. Long-term care. And that includes like all your nursing care, all your supplies that you should need, things like that. The only extra cost comes from billing out your medications. So you'd have co-payments, things like that. And then transportation would be a separate charge for like outside specialist appointments. But for long-term care, the facility doctor becomes your primary care doctor. Mm-hmm. Medicare does not pay anything for long-term care. Long-term is once, if say I had someone coming in for rehab and they stayed 20 days and they just weren't to the point, then they would just transition to long-term. Not going home. Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So whether they're coming from home or the hospital, straight Medicaid. For instance, I had a lady come in yesterday. We always look towards the end of a month for anyone to come because they are considered private pay the day they walk into my facility from the hospital or from home as a Medicaid patient. So we look at like the end of the month, and then the very next day when it turns to the first of the month, they become a Medicaid pending patient. So that's when their pending status comes in, and we start the process to transition them to long-term care Medicaid. So it's like day one, you have to pay privately. So whether it's in my facility, it's $325. You have to pay that on day one. And then starting first of the following month, you go into a pending status. So that's when you pay your Social Security to us and things like that. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. No, I mean, it's, yeah. You had another question? So in my facility, I'm licensed for 144 beds. Currently, my max is 132 because we're doing renovations, but every one of my beds is certified. So I kind of just play a game of maybe I have more than I want at that time, but at some point it's all going to weigh out. So all my beds are double certified. Yes, ma'am. We do not have a locked memory care unit. We have what Debbie spoke on. We have the Wander Guard bracelet, which doors will lock down. I am happy to say that we will have a locked memory care facility, hopefully by the end of the year. We're slowly doing that process, so we've gotten approved for that. So we're working on that. Anybody else? Yes, sir. Yes, they're our sister facility. We're under the same umbrella of Liberty. Yes, sir. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Yeah, so standard traditional Medicare, red, white, and blue, pays 20 days at 100% coverage should you have your 3-night qualifying midnight stay. And that means you are admitted to the hospital. You're not in observation or anything like that. They'll pay 20 days at 100%. And then day 21 through 100 is right now a copay of $217 a day. So if you have a secondary insurance, a Mutual of Omaha or a Aetna or something like that, most times they will cover that copayment. So you get 100 days. So say you discharge from us today and you are out of the hospital for 60 consecutive days with no ER visits or anything like that, your time will reset. Yep. You're welcome. Ugh. So the red, white, and blue, like I said, the traditional Medicare is the 20 days, 100%. If you've got an Advantage plan, a Humana, an Aetna, a WellCare, Troy Medicare, they run their own rules. So you don't have to be in the hospital 3 nights, but they have to say you can come. So it's a bigger hurdle to jump through. We have to ask for permission. And they may give you 7 days. They may say you can stay for 10. I've had one as short as 4 days. But they will to cover that 20 days at 100% coverage, and then they'll have a copay after that as well. But they're a bigger elephant. Anything else?
Well, thank you, Jenna. I know it's a lot for people to digest, and there's so many different questions, and that's why we like to have these programs, because the difference between, I mean, it took me a while when I first started working in home care, the difference between assisted living and skilled nursing and all this, it was very hard to navigate. So the thing is, you know, when I was younger, we heard of nursing homes, and then we've heard of people living in their home forever. We never knew about all these little things and little hurdles, and I don't know whether these little hurdles came about from the 60s until now, but there's a lot of hurdles to jump. So we have Jennifer Garner with Garner Law Firm, PLLC here, and she's going to explain the actual Medicaid spend down process, which helps a person who isn't on Medicaid to then wind up possibly on Medicaid if and when it comes to be that you might need to stay long-term at a skilled nursing facility. Okay, so here is Jennifer Garner. Do you have anything to pass out?
Yeah, Joella's got it there. Good afternoon. Hope you all are well. I hate that I haven't been able to be here for both days, but it's almost tax time and that keeps my office hopping. I've escaped for now. Hopefully nobody will come and drag me back before I'm done. So they are going to give you a handout. I gave you a handout just so that you could take notes or jot down questions. I don't mind being interrupted if it's easier for you that way to ask me questions as I go. I am going to quickly go through pages 1 and 2 because the meat of my presentation is 3 and 4. But I think by running through page 1 and 2, we're going to be able to pull together all the wonderful things that you have learned in day 1 and now day 2 of Lynn's program. So I apologize to those of you that may have been here when Lynn has done a similar program last year because I did not have time to change my storyline. So you are going to have to deal with Donald and Daisy Duck again. I tried to change to Cinderella quickly this morning, but I could not remember. My children are now college age, so I haven't watched the movie in a while. Could not remember what Cinderella's father died from. For some reason, I was thinking stroke, but that may just be because of my profession and that I think through those things. I Googled it this morning, and they did not know what he passed away from. He just died. So I was going to have to get more creative than I had brain cells for this morning. So we stuck with Donald and Daisy. I tweaked it a little bit for you. So let's set the stage. Daisy and Donald have worked hard. Of course, they saved some for retirement. They found the perfect location to spend their retirement years in Moore County. Not having children of their own, they decided that they would move close to one of their nephews in their later years. Both had had very successful careers, spent a lot of time with Donald's nephews, Huey, Dewey, and Louie. Dewey had enlisted in the U.S. military and was likely to remain based at Fort Bragg, North Carolina for most of his career. So Daisy and Donald found a lovely apartment. The town was lovely, the view was great, and they just loved the sense of community here. But Donald does notice a change in Daisy shortly after they moved. She seems a bit confused. She misses some of her morning swim clubs, and that perfect cornbread recipe just doesn't taste the same anymore. He mentions it to the regular physician, who suggests that she see a neurologist, a neuropsychologist, or a gerontologist in our area. And after a series of tests, ruling out other potential causes, Daisy is diagnosed with mild dementia, most likely the Alzheimer's type. Donald does attend some support group meetings, consults with Dementia Alliance NC for information and research. He also encourages all of his friends from Florida to participate in the annual Alzheimer's Walk to raise funds for research. He knows he'll have to be more involved in all the daily household activities and begin to take better care, or I shouldn't say better, more care of Daisy than he had in the past. So he goes to see his attorney and find out, what do I need to do from a legal standpoint to be able to take over and do all of these things? So he definitely needs to have financial power of attorney, durable power of attorney over Daisy. Anybody over the age of 18 of sound mind can execute a durable power of attorney, and probably should, so that you never know what will happen to you. Durable power of attorney simply means that it is a power of attorney that survives your incapacity. So it can be used when you're competent and just maybe physically unable to do things, or it can be used when you are mentally unable to handle things. It doesn't have to be witnessed in North Carolina. I myself draft it so that we do have 2 witnesses and a notary because some states do require witnesses. If Dewey was transferred to a base in Texas and they wanted to stay close to him, they may choose to leave and to move to another state, and that may be helpful to them. The financial power of attorney always has to be signed in front of a notary. There are short forms and long forms. I am a fan of long forms. I do still love trees and I hate my paper budget. However, I do feel like the person granting the power and the person receiving those powers should be able to read them and understand what they are. Gifting is very important in the world that I work in because we reach a point where somebody is serving as our financial power of attorney, and they should, in my opinion, if you're comfortable with them and how you want them to handle the end of your life, should probably have the option of gifting some of your assets if you needed them to do that to qualify for benefits like VA or Medicaid. Of course, I would tell Donald that he needs to have Daisy consider who she would want to be an alternate to him, because caregiving is very difficult. And because caregiving is so difficult, we do want to be sure that if something should happen to him, that somebody else will take care of her. So as he thinks about his options, he thinks about Huey, but he does have a little bit of hesitancy because Huey is very much like Nick Scrooge Duck. He was really tight, kind of has the first dollar that he ever earned. And then Dewey is close by, but it is possible that he would be deployed as a current soldier at Fort Bragg. Louis is definitely not an option for this job because he's terrible with money. He's wonderful about visiting, and he's actually a very good caregiver. So maybe he would be somebody that you would consider as a healthcare agent. But it is important to think about people's abilities and people's personalities, their distance from you, their age range. We don't necessarily just want to name our spouse and then our best friend who's 2 years older than us, because we'll end up without somebody to take care of us if we are the last man standing. People always ask me about filing powers of attorney. They would be filed in the Register of Deeds office if necessary. You can always obtain a certified copy. And they have to be filed if a real estate transaction is taking place. They can be springing powers of attorney that have conditions on them, or they can be immediate and completely effective at the day that you sign those. So we want to go through that with Donald and make sure that he has all of the powers that he needs to take care of Daisy, but we also need him to be sure that he has somebody appointed to take care of him, because it's very unlikely now that he can rely on Daisy to do that. If he doesn't have a power of attorney, it's guardianship. And I'm not here to talk about that today, but that is a court proceeding either in front of the clerk of court or in front of a jury. You have to prove your family member to be incompetent. It's expensive, has certain time frames in it. It's not immediate, something that I would want everyone to avoid if at all possible. Of course, we need to talk about health care with Donald and Daisy, understand what they want, what they don't want at the end of their life. What is their plan? Are they trying to stay home? Do they understand that they may need to go to a facility? Do they want to go ahead and move into a continuing care retirement community? And go over all of those options with them. They should have a health care power of attorney if they don't wish to be kept alive artificially at the end of their life. A living will or medical directive is great. We do encourage them to have HIPAA forms separate than the ones at the doctors or at the hospital, because those expire with time. And during COVID, we had real difficulty in trying to access medical information. So we talk to them, we meet with them, we go over everything. We make sure that Daisy's still competent to make decisions and that she has input in the rest of her planning. So get all their documents done, and Donald and Daisy spend the next few years enjoying their life and adjusting to the diagnosis. Time comes when Donald can no longer handle everything by himself, and he's considering placing Daisy in a facility. So what should he do? I want him to go out and visit assisted living facilities, visit skilled nursing care, of course, advocate for her and the care that she's currently receiving. Become familiar with the rights of patients in facilities. Meet with the facility bookkeeper to talk about insurance coverage, any long-term care insurance they have, and the expense of this, and try to plot that out and figure out what his options are. So Daisy transfers to an assisted living memory care unit. She attends a lot of activities, meets new friends. Donald is able to visit frequently. He gets some rest. He gets to travel to see some old friends and his nephews. And he now can attend to his own health care needs. I find so many of my caregiver clients miss their own doctor's appointments and don't do things for themselves. And it's very important for you to stay strong. Donald receives a call from the facility, and they ask for a care conference to discuss Daisy's decline. She has reached a point where assisted living is not sufficient to meet her needs. What does he do? Of course, he can consult with hospice or palliative care. He can discuss in-home care, whether he wants to bring her home and hire assistants, whether he wants to leave her in the assisted living and hire people to come in and help there, whether he'd like to continue to use facility care or a combination of the two. But how's he going to pay for it? So as you've probably already learned over the last few days, Medicare is really only going to do doctors, hospitals, rehabilitation, and diagnostic type testing. So Medicare is not going to jump in and pay for her assisted or skilled nursing care unless she's in rehabilitation purposes. Veterans benefits, special assistance. So special assistance is a Medicaid waiver program. I get very irritated when people just call it Medicaid because even though it's coming from the Medicaid pot of money that the state of North Carolina has, it is a very different program than the skilled nursing Medicaid, and a lot of people confuse the rules. It's a very different program. So special assistance can only be used in an assisted living facility, and only in an assisted living facility that has agreed to accept that. So you do still apply at the Department of Social Services. It is a very different process than the North Carolina Medicaid for a nursing home. It has a strict income cap. Most of my clients do not qualify for this just because of the income cap. So if you take your gross income, that is before they take out that Medicare premium or any other deductions that you have out of your Social Security. So if you take your gross Social Security and you make more than $1,397, they will not even think about accepting you into the program. That's just the cap. You're over it by a penny, you're out. The enhanced rate is for the memory care. So the enhanced rate would apply to Daisy. If she has more than $1,792 in income, then she also exceeds the cap and is ineligible. So we're assuming she's ineligible. They didn't have children. She was a career woman. She worked every day, 7 days a week at Disney. So her Social Security check's a little larger than $1,792. She also would have to have assets of $2,000 or less in order to qualify. So because of her decline, she needs to enter into a skilled nursing center, long-term care, what you or I would call a nursing home. That's going to be what people refer to as Medicaid, and it is the Medicaid program for adults and disabled individuals, people over the age of 65. It's sort of a three-part test. One, medically, she has to need that skilled nursing care. So I can't just run by St. Joseph's Health Center today and say, hey, I'm checking myself in. I'm done. I want somebody else to feed me and do all of this work for me. My doctor would probably not sign an FL2 form for me that would find that it's medically necessary for me to be there. So it is medically necessary that Daisy be in a skilled nursing center. She's no longer mobile. She needs help moving and transferring. She needs help with feeding, lots of redirection, needs help with toileting, all of those activities of daily living that would qualify her for Medicaid, medically necessary. We look at her income. There's no cap on the income here. The cap is basically the average cost of care. And so she has $2,000 coming in Social Security. That is not enough to pay for a nursing home monthly. She's probably about $10,000 short. So she passes the income test. So now we look at her asset test. So what assets does she have? She's going into the nursing home and her asset limit is $2,000. She can only have $2,000. And I always tell my clients, please keep it below $2,000, because if you go a penny over, it disqualifies you for the next month of care. So think of it as a $1,500 limit, and then you don't have to do math every afternoon and make sure that you've spent enough. Community spouse, that's the person that still lives in the community. They've not moved to the nursing home, so that's Donald. He can keep a minimum of $32,532 and a maximum of $162,660. So I know that makes no sense so far, but hopefully it will when we reach page 4. And if not, I'll answer a lot of questions, which is fine. This is a very complex program and it changes all the time. Okay, so let's figure out what Donald and Daisy have. They have bank assets. They have various CDs and savings, and that is $200,000. You notice here I like round numbers for the math purposes, okay? Donald has always loved to have race cars. He used to spend a lot of time at Walt Disney World on that racetrack with all the kids. So he has a 2026 Mustang worth about $30,000. Daisy loves to transport all the neighborhood children down to the lake for swimming. So she has a Suburban, a couple of years old, worth $40,000. They have a lot of household furnishings, miscellaneous personal property, and of course a lot of Disney memorabilia, but that counts as your household furnishings for Medicaid purposes, and they do not require you to have an estate sale or a yard sale and sell all of your items. So that is not going to end up counting, so we just refer to that as priceless items. Prepaid irrevocable burial contracts. So not having children, the two of them were very concerned who's going to make our plans, who's going to have money available at the time of our passing to make sure that the funeral home gets paid and that all of our wishes are followed. So they already went to the funeral home of their choice and created their entire plan, which I personally encourage all of my clients to go do. They've already paid for this, so it is secured in that irrevocable burial contract. And it is insured and registered with the North Carolina Board of Mortuary Science. So they don't have to worry about the funeral home changing ownership or their funds being gone. They do still have their house in Disney World, but Walt never lets you own your house by yourself there. So Walt still owns half of the house, and Donald and Daisy just own the other half. And that way Walt Disney can maintain control of who owns inside the gates. So that's worth $200,000. Of course, everybody was issued stock in the Disney Cruise Line when that started, and it's been very, very popular. So they have $200,000 in cruise line stock. And then they have a death benefit, which is basically life insurance on their individual lives as employees of Disney. And they don't own that policy, but they do have the right to name the beneficiary. So it, as we discuss later, it's not a countable asset to them because they can't cash out of it or do anything with it other than just name a beneficiary. So what's countable? When we look at our asset limits, we have to decide what kind of countable assets do we have and what do we have that's non-countable. So our countable assets are those bank assets. We could go down to the bank and remove those assets and pay for Daisy's care. We do have an extra vehicle. We're only allowed to have one under the Medicaid regulations for the couple. And so we have a $40,000 additional vehicle. And then we do have the stock in the Disney Cruise Line, which we could sell and create cash to pay the nursing home for Daisy. So what's non-countable? One vehicle. The house, because the house in Disney is not owned by them exclusively. So they cannot force Donald and Daisy to sell the home there because Walt owns the other half. And Walt has nothing to do with the fact that Daisy needs nursing home care, and his half of the house is not a countable asset for the government to assess against them. Household furnishings and personal items. Now, if they had a drawer full of gold bars, We don't refer to that as a household furnishing or miscellaneous personal property. We get in trouble for that. There's federal penitentiaries for you and I to go to if we don't count that. It also includes cash. So I do have clients that say, well, what if my money is not in the bank? Well, if your money's not in the bank, it is still an asset, and you're still signing the Medicaid application under the penalties of perjury under federal law. Scary stuff. So we don't want the men in suits showing up in their big black Suburbans and taking us for a vacation. Irrevocable burial contracts. So remember, they went and did all their pre-planning, they paid for those, but they don't have the right to get the cash back. It's irrevocable with the purchase that they have done. Burial plots are also non-countable. They could have a burial plot for both of them, and maybe they've also purchased 3 for Huey, Dewey, and Louie to be able to use so that they would all be together at some point. That would be acceptable. Disney death benefit, which is a true life insurance type product. It has no cash value and they can't get anything for it. It just pays to their beneficiary when they die, so it's not countable. Most businesses don't give those kinds of benefits to those of us that are still working, but I do meet plenty of retired clients that do still have benefits like that from former employers. Yes, ma'am. So as long as it's not an investment, all of your personal property and miscellaneous personal property is not countable. So if I have a ride-on lawnmower instead of a push lawnmower, I don't have to report my ride-on lawnmower as being kind of excessive or needing to be sold. Same applies for jewelry. Unless you are a diamond collector or a gold collector and it's really an investment. Does that help? Okay. So then what are we going to do with these countable assets? Because we don't want a lot of time to go by and be writing a check for $10,000 or $12,000 a month to the skilled nursing facility to care for Daisy before we do a plan. So we have a total of $440,000 in countable assets. And this is where our minimum and our maximum come back into play from page 3. So 1/2 of that amount is $220,000. It does not matter if Donald went to the bank yesterday and moved all of that cash into his name alone. He is still a legal spouse of Daisy's. And because they are legally married, they are responsible for each other. Does not matter if they have a premarital agreement, a postmarital agreement. The only thing that severs their assets is a judicial settlement, a court order. And so unless they were separated and divorcing and there is an actual judgment signed off on by the court judge that their assets are hereby split, then they do belong in the pot of countable assets. So we have $220,000 for Daisy and $220,000 for Donald. Remember, the maximum is $162,660 this year. They love to throw these crazy numbers at us. I wish they'd round up or round down, but they multiply by the inflation number and it's unpredictable. So Donald gets to keep $162,660. And then we keep $2,000 for Daisy, at least at the start. So that means we have to spend $275,340, and we have to document those expenditures to social services. And then Daisy would be eligible. So if I'm sitting with Daisy and Donald, we talk a little bit about the vehicle. Does it really make sense for Donald to continue to drive a Mustang? He can't get Daisy in or out of it. He may want to bring her home for holidays or Sunday afternoons, and you're certainly allowed to take your loved one out as long as it's safe. So he decides he's going to trade in both of the cars that they have and get a nice little SUV. So he's going to keep a little bit of the sporty and a little bit of the Suburban, and he's going to spend an extra $10,000 after he trades both of those in. Now remember, they were renting, And so as renters, we don't have a house to exclude for them. But the federal government says it's okay to keep your house. And as long as you have your spouse in it, in this situation, it's not countable. If Daisy was single and she wanted to keep her house, she could. She just has to declare to social services, or her power of attorney has to declare on her behalf that she has an intent to return home. So I have yet, in 32 years of practice, found anybody living in a nursing home that did not express a desire, if it was possible for them to do so, that they wish to stay there, right? Everybody always says, I want to go home. So he decides he'll buy a nice little townhome in Southern Pines because they don't have a home place. They own that house in Disney, but it's just a half ownership with Walt. It's not their primary residence. So we spend $220. I wish I could find a townhome in Southern Pines for $220, but it worked today, so we can pretend. So that's now the non-countable home place. Well, guess what? Walt called yesterday and he told Donald that the roof down in Disney was not looking good. They'd had some hurricane damage and some shingles were gone. And he needs Donald to send $20,000 as his half of the roof repair. So that check got mailed. And then, of course, they needed some paint and some freshening up, and the taxes and the insurance were due as well. So he ended up having to send Walt an additional $6,000 check. But that's fine because he was not giving that money away, and he was not hiding that money in a mason jar in the backyard or under the mattress. He was actually spending it on an asset that they own because it needed to be taken care of. Now we go to Daisy's room and we find out that the facility does not provide a TV in her room. And Daisy was always kind of particular, of course, working at Disney with her outfits and her bows and all of the things that she had to keep. She always had those cute little high heels on that matched her bow. So he needs to do some things to make sure that Daisy's comfortable in her room and feels like she's at home. So he's allocated $2,000. And he goes and does a big Walmart and Target run and is sure she's got everything that she needs. Then they had not purchased those burial plots yet. Remember, they had paid for the funeral, but they had not purchased the burial plots. So he decided to go out and purchase some burial plots. He decides to buy them from Walt so they can be in the special Disney cemetery. So that's another $3,000 check going to Florida. He bought that new car, and with owning a car comes that horrible car insurance. So he wrote a check for $1,500, went ahead and paid the full year. So you can't prepay things and still qualify for a Medicaid spend down. So I couldn't say, oh, Moore County Tax Office, I'm going to send you $6,000 and I want this to cover the next 3 years of my taxes for me. That's prohibited. But you can pay anything that's current and due. So if the tax bills are out, if your homeowner's insurance is coming up, sometimes I have a client that has a monthly draft for their homeowner's insurance or their auto insurance, and instead of doing it monthly, where Donald's going to have to continue to pay that every month out of the income he has left, maybe we just switch the car insurance and the homeowner's insurance to annual premium, and then we don't have to pay that extra amount to break it up monthly. And in addition to not paying that, we get to go ahead and do it as part of our spend down. So he pays that car insurance on the new car up front for the next year's policy. He doesn't have any life insurance on Daisy, and he's a little bit worried about having some cash, additional cash after she passes away. So they can have up to $10,000 in face value of life insurance, and the cash value of the policy cannot exceed that. Now, we have to fill out a life insurance application for Daisy, so we do have to talk about her medical condition, and we do have to pay quite a high premium for a $10,000 policy on her. We're probably paying $9,800 for it, but again, it's allowed, and it is something that he will receive after her passing to help him through that time period. Well, we bought a new house, and I don't know when the last time was that you all bought a house, but none of them are perfect, and so we all tend to spend quite a bit of money down at Lowe's Hardware. So he has a Lowe's Hardware card. where he has been fixing and doing things on the home. So we put $2,840 onto his Lowe's credit card balance. Remember, we can't prepay and have a credit, but if we have a bill for $5,000, we can pay $2,840 of it. And if we total that up, we've done our $275, $340 spend down. We have documented and copied all of that, and we have collected our bank statements, and we have provided social services with all of the proof of everything that we have done, where we started, how we created the total values as of the date that she entered a nursing home, how we divided it by 2, and made our calculations and our distributions. Home equity limit, just as a side point for you all, because we've all seen property values kind of skyrocketing around here, and they're not creating any more new land. So in 2026, remember I talked about if I went into the nursing home, my husband could keep our house. In 2026, your house has to be worth $752,000 in order for it to be considered non-countable. So basically, they shelter or shield $752,000. So I'm very well covered under that. However, some of my clients own horse farms that are $3 and $4 million properties. They are not going to fall under that and qualify for Medicaid. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Mm-hmm. So Donald can keep the 162,660, and she can keep 2,000. So I'm actually getting down to 164,660, but yes, that's what I'm doing, because you can go to social services all day and meet with them and try to qualify for Medicaid, but you're not going to qualify until you meet whatever the magic number is from page 4 calculations. You are, but I would say that you can always get to 162,660. and legally get to it. I'm not an aggressive walk the line kind of person. If you come to see me and somebody comes in the crisis situation, Donald shows up and his stock portfolio has gone through the roof, and we have a house and we have $2 million in a brokerage account. Personally, and I'm not saying every attorney would do this, but personally, I would talk to him about whether he really wants to qualify her for Medicaid. So if we have $2 million available to the two of them, they don't have a disabled child or kids in college they're still taking care of. So I personally walk them through it kind of more like a social worker and say, well, what did you all really want? If you have those funds available, let's talk about whether it makes more sense to bring her home with caregivers, or does it make more sense to keep her where she's comfortable and she's used to being. She's in assisted living. She still recognizes a lot of her caregivers. Maybe we can keep her in assisted if we hire private duty folks to come in and supplement what the assisted living facility is able to do. And that's why I mentioned things like hospice and palliative care, because we can keep people in assisted living a lot longer if we are helping the assisted living facility get through the rough days by having more support available. I do not want to spend all of my time with Donald doing paperwork and driving him crazy with all my requests for all the things that we have to turn into social services. If Daisy is only going to live 3 more months, I want him to be at the facility visiting with Daisy and just bite the bullet and pay for 3 months. You can have a private room. You can go as often as you want. You won't be bothered. So there's benefits to private paying. The other thing I wanted to mention is there is still a 2-year caregiver exemption. And this becomes very popular or something that you just want to keep in mind if you have a child that's willing to come in and help. So let's say that, remember Huey, I think it was that I used in my example, was our kind of caregiver, touchy-feely kind of guy, really bad with money, but it was actually Louie, sorry. So Louie might say, you know, I really hate to see Aunt Daisy in the nursing home. I really know that she would love to be back here in the townhome, sitting on the porch, looking at the lake, having an orange juice. I would like to move in with you, Uncle Donald, and help you take care of Daisy. We know we have limited time left. That would be wonderful, maybe, hopefully. We have issues where that doesn't turn out so wonderful, but sometimes the child's there because the child just wants free rent and room and board, and they don't really help. Mom has an extra person to take care of, but we issue eviction orders at that point, which I have had to do, so it does happen. But there's a 2-year caregiver exception, so if Louie comes in and he actually stays there for 2 years and helps keep her at home, and we have doctor's affidavits stating that if he had not been there, Donald never could have done this on his own. And she is in such a medical state that she would have been in a facility had that person not been there. And it is called the caregiver child exception. So we might not be able to get Louie in on that. I know we can do stepchildren, and we've been successful actually with a Moore County family where we had to fight with the state that it was okay for multiple children to share that. So to tag team, not just one child moving in 24/7, but that child could go home for a weekend and his sister could come in and do that care. You can transfer that house to the caregiver child without a penalty. And so you remember I said no gifting. Everything we were doing, we were documenting, and it was for the benefit of Daisy or Donald. Giving their house away is not for their benefit, but it is allowable because that child was there providing care for at least 2 years, or otherwise they would have had to have been in a nursing home. The look back for gifts is 5 years. So let's say that Donald and Daisy had come in 4 years ago and met with me and decided that they really didn't want to continue to own half of the house down at Disney with Walt, because Walt is a pretty tough businessman and they weren't really enjoying working and owning things with him. And they wanted to sell that or gift that to the nephews. Well, they could gift that to the nephews, but then they need to make sure they stay healthy, kind of wrapped in bubble wrap, don't fall, don't break a hip, don't end up in a nursing home for at least 5 years. So they could give it away. Yes, ma'am. Oh, well, yeah, if they had not gone and bought their pre-plan irrevocable policy with the funeral home, then they could have gone and done that, kind of like they had done with the burial plots. So they had not purchased the burial plots yet, so we wanted to be sure that they had a place to go once the funeral home completed their job. But if they had not done the $30,000 previously to make sure that that was covered and everything was picked out, they could have done it during the spend down process. That's why that you can spend the money for the spend down, the 275, 340 on any non-countable asset. I was just trying to give you examples of how they might spend it. Yeah, so your healthcare power of attorney should be the appropriate place to have given your healthcare agent the right to make decisions for you after your passing or before your passing for power. So that was added in the 2007 legislation. So if you have a very old healthcare power of attorney, or you look at it and you did not give your healthcare agent the right to do that planning for you, that would be a reason to go see your attorney and get those documents updated. As a spouse, I've never seen Donald unable to plan for his own spouse because he's the default healthcare agent even without the document, but that can get sticky on paperwork. So I think that's probably an insurance company's interpretation that is not legally correct. If you are a financial power of attorney for someone, you have the full authority to spend their money. That money has to be spent for their benefit. So it can only be gifted if you have a specific gifting provision, but pre-planning a funeral is not a gift. So I think any durable financial power of attorney could go in and do the legal documentation and purchase that product just like they could anybody. Gifts to disabled individuals are also not a penalized transfer. So the two exceptions I wanted to mention to you today were a disabled person receiving a transfer from you. So let's say that Dewey had been very injured in the war, and in addition to being disabled under VA regulations, he was also disabled under the Social Security regulations. You can make a gift of your assets to Dewey without being penalized. So let's say we finished the spend down and we still had $30,000 left. We could give Dewey the $30,000 as a gift to a disabled individual and not be penalized for that. Now, that might cause great harm to Dewey because Dewey might be qualified for Medicaid because of his disability. So it's not something we just do on a whim and start handing over funds. But if you did the planning right and kind of planned for Dewey at the same time, it might be very beneficial. We'd put cash into Dewey's name. Maybe Dewey could go and pre-plan his funeral, purchase his own burial plot, pay off some debts, do some things for himself. So I do see more and more people with disabled children and disabled grandchildren. And you need to be very careful how you plan for them. The worst thing you can do is leave your grandchild a gift if that grandchild's disabled, because the likelihood is they qualify for government benefits that the money you leave them is not going to replace. So you've actually done them more harm than good by leaving them that $10,000 gift. Yes, ma'am. Oh, wow, that's another show. So let's say that Daisy dies and Donald falls down the stairs at the townhome and breaks his hip and he doesn't recover very well. So Donald's finishing up his therapy days over at Phoenix Village, and we're getting really worried. Donald is not looking too good because this fabulous lady in the back, who used to be one of the very best physical therapists at Phoenix, is now retired. So he did not recover well, didn't get back on his feet. So we're looking at him having to stay there at Phoenix Village, and how are we going to pay for that? He has that $162,000. Daisy's now died, so he got the $10,000 in life insurance, and we would have to look at that money and how it was owned and figure out how to do a spend down. That's not easy to do unless he has, like Dewey, we could transfer everything to Dewey and he would qualify for Medicaid the next day because we could use a disabled individual under the Social Security regulations. That would be one option. Otherwise I'm one of those people that hangs out kind of in that gray area between, is your whole goal to qualify for Medicaid? Or did you work all these years and save all this money to also enjoy some of it, right? So maybe he would like to have a private room at Phoenix Village and he doesn't want to be in a joint room. Well, we need to private pay if he wants to have his own room. What if he's been in a different facility and we were very unhappy with the charge nurse there and we couldn't wait to get him out of that facility and over to Phoenix Village? Well, if we don't have cash, we're not getting in the door at Phoenix Village, right? We can call around all day long to every long-term care facility in our region. And if you ask for a Medicaid bed, I guarantee you there's none available. But if we pay a month or two up front and then we transition, if we're not a really disruptive, horrible patient or horrible family, we probably find a bed. Yes, ma'am. Depends on the type of long-term care insurance. They're all treated differently, and that industry is ever evolving. If you bought a policy way back, then it is really just like a reimbursement, And if that reimbursement went to Donald because he was home, then it's not Daisy's money. And it's not income in that case. If you have one of these hybrid plans that's part life insurance, part take it out for long-term care expenses or an annuity that can be used, that's a little different because you get into, is this income, is it principal, is it borrowing from a life insurance policy? And that's a CPA question. Yes, ma'am. So if you have a trust, and there's a million different kinds of trusts, we could do a day on that too, talk to Lynn. But if you have just your standard estate planning revocable trust that avoids probate, but still your assets flow through it like a will, that is completely countable. Those assets are available to you and you control those assets, or your trustee or your financial power of attorney controls them. So they are completely countable. So they're in that countable bucket at the very beginning. If you have an irrevocable trust that is specially drafted to be Medicaid compliant and you set it up at least 5 years ago and put assets in it, then it's non-countable because it is not yours and you cannot get back to it. Okay? Yes, ma'am. No, the gift to a disabled person does not have to be a family member. They just need to be found disabled under the Social Security regulations. Yeah. She's got a sign-up sheet in the back. Let me know. I'll help you plan your estate. We'll go to Hawaii and plan. Okay. Yes, ma'am. So you can't use a donation. That does fall under gifting. And I kind of wish that that was a little more open, because I think rather than either giving your money to the government when you're taxed on it, and they do charitable donations to places that you may not consider to be your charities, it might be better for you to have that control. I would love to see something like that. Now, we do live in the Bible Belt, and that helps us out when we look back 5 years to see if there's been any gifts, because we do have a lot of people that donate regularly to their churches. And I have heard from a lot of other attorneys around the country that gifts to churches end up being penalized by social services because it's a gift, just like if I gave my child a gift. Knock on wood, haven't seen that here, but I don't have clients that regularly give, huge amounts. I mean, it's significant. Maybe every Sunday it's $200 or $250. I mean, that adds up quickly. But I think you still have that Bible Belt concept, and it's just not being treated as a gift. But you couldn't just write a check for $100,000 to the building fund at church and think that you'll get away with that. Anybody else? I totally confused everybody else, so you don't even have a question? No. All right, Lynn's coming back to get me. At least I spoke quickly and she didn't have to get the shepherd's hook and drag me off. So, thanks for coming, and I hope you learned a lot the last 2 days.
Thank you so much. All right. Okay, so we have our very last speaker, and her name is Sarah Villa, and she's from Department of Social Services. Oh, come on up, Sarah. You gotta come fix everything. Thank you again, Jennifer. Okay, so after our last speaker is when we are going to do our door prizes, so stay in your seats, please. We just have one more speaker left.
Here you go. I will be as quick as humanly possible. Sometimes once you get me talking, I don't stop. So my name is Sarah. I do work for Moore County DSS. I have no say over what Medicaid does. Okay. Oh, but I don't want to spit on it. Okay. So, sorry. So my name is Sarah. I work for Moore County DSS, but again, I have no say over what Medicaid does because I don't agree with some of their stuff. So amongst many, many, many things that I do, one of the things that I provide is placement services. So if you, maybe one of your friends, a community member, something like, if you are interested in going into a facility setting, then, but you kind of don't know where to start, or it just gets so overwhelming, you just kind of want some assistance, then you give me a call. My card is back there on the table. And what we do is we come up with a plan together to get you into that facility or a facility that meets your level of care. So like Jennifer had mentioned earlier, there is a form called an FL2. Regardless of whether or not you have Medicaid, if you want to go to a facility or anybody wants to go to a facility, you have to have that form, because that form tells me what the doctor says your recommended level of care is. And that is the type of placement that I will be calling. So there's different types. There's SNF, which is SNF, which is also skilled placement. There's memory care, there's assisted living, there's family care home. So there's a lot of different options. So that you have to have that paper, or I can't do anything. I just sit there and look pretty. So the first time we would meet, if you want that service for yourself, or if somebody wants the service, they can always come meet with me. But if they don't understand the decision and they have somebody that's authorized to make decisions for them, then the person who needs placing and the person authorizing the service, I have to meet with both of them, because we have to do an assessment, which my assessment's it's not a medical one. It's more of a, I don't want to say something mean about a doctor, y'all. So sometimes I will get an FL2 and they will tell me somebody needs skilled placement. So skilled is like a nursing home. You have to have a skilled need, like be hooked up to a machine, or you can't walk, can't stand, you're bedridden, things of that nature. And I'll get an FL2 that says this person is completely able-bodied. They're a little confused, they wander a little bit, but other than that, they are perfectly fine. And I'm like, okay, so I'm going to need you to change this. And then I will argue with a doctor for about an hour because they don't believe me. And I'm like, but I promise. So that's kind of what the assessment is for. So, because I want to make sure that the information that the doctor has given me is accurate, so that we can do the least restrictive option for you. Like because if you go to a skilled facility when you don't need that level of care, then you're not going to be amongst your peers. You're going to be amongst folks who are at a different level than you are, going through different things than you are. So I do try to advocate for the most appropriate level of care. And I'm mouthy, y'all, I'm so sorry. But so once the consent is provided, we will come up with a plan. So there will be things that I do, but there will also be things that I need you to do. So on top of getting that FL2, I also need you to get a TB test, because it is required by the state for you to have at least one TB test when you enter a facility. And then depending on what type you get, you have to get a second one once you are there. In addition to that, I also have to have history and physical. And these are the minimum things that a facility requires you to send them for them to consider you for placement for admission, to give you a room. There is a lot to placement. I could probably just keep going. But to kind of be a little bit brief, just if you are interested in placement, grab my card off the table back there and we can have an all-day conversation if you would like. I am perfectly fine with that. That's something to put on my day sheets. They can't fuss at me for talking to you. And I'm very spirited. I'll make you laugh. I know it's a stressful process. I know it's a hard decision to make. And I try to be as uplifting as I can, as encouraging as I can. And I promise you, I will do my best to get you in a place that best meets your needs and doesn't make you feel, I don't know what the words are, y'all. I'm losing the words as I'm talking. Just try and make the process as stressless as I can. And that's not just for you, that's also for your family. If your family has questions and you have to consent to them talking to me, I don't go, oh my goodness, but your mama said that when you were 10 years old. I mean, I don't tell them what we talk about. So, but if they have questions, like what the process is going to be for placement, what does that mean for your finances? That's usually the questions I get. Like, does that mean they have to stay there forever? No, that's not what that means. So if they have questions too, like my job is to make it a little bit easier for y'all, give y'all the information that you need, and make you feel more comfortable and make your families feel more comfortable. And then once you are in placement, which means that placement has been secured. You are already in a room, you're already getting set up, everything. So I still keep you open a little bit longer, your case, because if you have questions or something comes up or there's an issue with that facility, then you give me another call and we will figure out another plan, okay? I know there's a lot of things I missed, but we're just gonna go straight to questions. Does anybody have questions? Yes, ma'am.
But I have a home, and sometimes when my mom used to make the home, say, when the property at home, they put somebody else's name out of the name for the past 5 years. So, I don't remember that, but if I have a home and I have a daughter that's 100% paid with all of the provisions, and I have one that's not, which one, you can't tell me, I'm not asking you to include me, but would it affect the one that's 100% already disabled, veteran, or would it affect the one that's on their own more so than the one that's disabled?
Okay, so you're just, I just want to clarify. So you have the scenario, you have a home and you applied, I assume you applied for Medicaid and that's why they asked you that question?
No,
No?
I did apply, but I didn't qualify, but that person wasn't brought up. But, yeah, he said, if something happens to me tomorrow or leaving and my home is still in my name, how does, how does that affect?
Did Jennifer leave? Hey, come here. Come here. So it sounds like this is a legal question. So are you?
And it depends on what the disabled veteran receives and whether that's an entitlement because he was disabled before, so they don't take that away from you. It doesn't matter what your ancestors income are. If he's disabled under social security regulations and receives Medicaid or SSI, that his asset and income is measured, and if he has an extra house, that's probably an issue. If they lives in the house or needs the house because of qualify them for all of their benefits.
I'm learning with y'all too. I didn't know the answer to that. Okay. I do know that if you gift your home and then you try to apply for Medicaid, then they still require you to receive the market value of that home, and you will be penalized that amount, I guess, until that amount is succeeded in accordance with Medicaid policy.
Well, this is a very close number, it's not accurate, but if I gave $100,000 house away, and then I went to qualify for Medicaid, I would be penalized approximately 9.5 months, where Medicaid was refused to cover me because I gave my house away. Or that, we don't know when that 9.5 month penalty starts, and we're on a really small thing, because it's not until I'm approved for Medicaid that my penalty starts. And we have no idea, based on the volume of applications going through social services, how many months it will take for them to approve you for Medicaid. So this case, I mean, it's supposed to be 90 days under the law, and it never is, because they're overworked and underpaid, and there's nobody there to do the work. So it could take 6 months to approve me, I have to pay you those 6 months, and then my 9.5 month penalty starts. So I have 15.5 months, and I better have saved a lot of money to try to pay, because I gave my house away. So I have to go find that kid I gave it to, and then give it back to me. Good luck. I was ordered or told that they're going to use. It's not necessarily that I'm trying to stop a Medicaid, it's the thing that you go to this home and you have that clause where if you haven't, if you do have something in your name, or you haven't signed it over to someone for the past 5 years, what's the penalty? If you're not applying for Medicaid, nobody gets penalized. You have to apply for Medicaid, and I hope not.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all for coming. Thank you to all of our speakers. And I'm going to turn down the volume real quick because I haven't. Joella, can you go to that wall and please turn it to like 7? Thank you. I have a loud voice to begin with, so I do not need it all the way up to 10. So, okay, so we're going to do door prizes now. So anybody who has a door prize, please come to the front of the room. And Katie, would you help me with, there's a bag right there by Karen. There was one of our vendors that had to leave early, and she didn't want to take it out because it's a wind chimes, and she did not want to make racket while she was leaving. So, okay. You got it? Everybody have a pink ticket? Door prize ticket? Okay. We're going. The first one. Last 3 numbers are 340. 340. Okay, we have Tarabella with a lovely, oh, look at how cute that is. Is that a bird feeder? Oh my God, that's adorable. It's a picnic feeder, picnic table door, bird feeder. Good God. Whew. I'm just a little tired. I'm getting old these days. Okay, the last 3 on this one is 311. All right, my neighbor Sharon, what does she get? How much? $25 gas card from Magnolia Gardens. Isn't that nice? All right, next up is Bella with Cornerstone Caregiving, and the last 3 are 334. All right, look at that beautiful orchid. What a beautiful color. It looks fake. Look at Robin is describing and doing a fun little dance with her fern. Okay, so the last 3 are 345. 345. That's you? Look at that fern. Perfect for a front porch or back porch. And now we have Samantha with Peace of Mind Consulting, and she's got beautiful purple tulips here. 333. That's an angel number. Very good. Okay, next up we have 2 because it's Henry and Henry Logistics. So she's got 2 door prizes, one from Henry and one from Henry. So the first number is 328. 328. Going once, going twice. They must have left early. Okay, how about 326? All right, that's 1 from Henry, and the next one from Henry is 305. All right, way in the back. Wait, she's already won that one. So now you're here. Okay, so we have the next number. This is 310. Oh, very beautiful. This is from Pine's Funeral, and it's a gorgeous Gerber daisy. All right, Home Choice Network. Okay, we've got 312. Woohoo, Marguerite, look at that. I think they won one last week, too. That's awesome. Decorate the whole backyard. Okay, the next one up is a beautiful bottle of wine here from a local. This is wonderful. So Pat is with CAC. CAC is the Community Advocacy Council. And they are volunteers that go into assisted livings and skilled nursing homes, and they make sure and act as an advocate for seniors. If they notice something that might be neglect or abuse or something, they're the advocate, and they get with that facility as well as with the state. And this is what they do in their spare time as a volunteer. So this is wonderful. So for the person who won this fabulous bottle of wine is 338. All right, lady in the back. Gonna have a party at her house. Look at this gorgeous basket. This is from the Greens at Pinehurst. The last 3 are 320. Oh, look at that. This is a lucky couple, man. This is a lucky couple. All right, so for the wind chimes, you can hear them. 348. Woo, there you go. And last but not least, we have Casey with Care Patrol and a beautiful white orchid. 319. All right. Lovely. Well, thank you all so much for coming. I hope you learned a lot. Thank you for all of our sponsors. Hope you have a good rest of the lovely day. And we'll see you next time. Bye.